grandmother, and author of books, all available on Amazon. I am a Jesus lover ministering to women and men in different nations of the world through the online platform called the Watchers Prayer Ministry. My passion is to lead you in praying those prayers that you have always wanted to pray but did not know how to. Through the help of the Holy Spirit, I bridge this gap by crafting prayers just for you. My second passion is to bring you in touch with real people who have real testimonies of God's faithfulness to answer us when we call through this platform, Conversations with Pastor T. Can you do these three things? 1, share this video. If you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do so. And 3, you can receive weekly prayers every weekend in your inbox by subscribing through the link below. Welcome to Conversation with Pastor T. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. It's good to see you join in again this great afternoon as we follow on different conversations here. I'm so glad and I'm excited to continue on a conversation that started last week. So last week I shared with us about how I had seen this post by Kylie Jenner, and how she had said that they were no longer going to call her son Wolf because they didn't think that that name fitted him. And that began a series of conversations with different people, and we started talking about names. So I realized that it was a deep conversation with people talking about how the names, some people were able to talk about how that those names had impacted them. And then someone now shared more discussions with me, and I said, you know something, I think I would love for us to continue that conversation. But before I go further, I want to just welcome everyone. If this is your first time, welcome. If you are a returning subscriber, welcome. It's always good to see you and all the regulars every time you join, and we have great conversations together. So welcome to all those who are on Facebook, and if you are on YouTube, welcome. Remember, please like the video, share the video, and subscribe if you have not already done so. So welcome. So continuing on this conversation about names. So somebody, one of my guests today, because I have two guests today, she shared with me a video she had done or an interview or a discussion that she had had on her platform on Instagram. And once again, it was about names. And I was like, you know something, why don't you come on board and let's continue this conversation. So this afternoon, I'm inviting Hilda, Manyo, Dixon, and Bitebo Gogo. So let me bring them in right now. I can see Bitebo. Hey, Bitebo, welcome. Good to see you. Can you hear me?
Hi.
Hi.
Yes, I can hear you. Absolutely.
Welcome. Okay, and I can see Funke. Good afternoon. Yes, and Hilda, I'm bringing you in right now. Hi, Hilda. Hi, Hilda. Can you hear us? We can see your great smile. We can see your super smile, but we're not hearing you yet. Okay. So good. So once we're going to start straight away. So let me start first with Hilda. Hilda, can you talk?
Yes.
Hi, Hilda.
I'm not in yet. It says I'm backstage. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, can you
So,
see us?
yes, I can hear you now.
Very good. So Good. Hilda, would you
Hilda.
like to introduce yourself to us?
Really?
Okay, I think she's freezing. Bitebo, please introduce yourself.
Okay, my name
I
is
can talk, but can you hear
Bitebo.
me?
Yes, Hilda, we can hear you. You're freezing though.
So we give you a few minutes, Hilda. Let Bitebo go first. Okay, Bitebo, talk to
Yeah,
us.
I
Introduce
can
yourself, please.
see you, but I can't see Bitable.
Okay, don't worry about it. Bitebo is about to talk now, so just give a few minutes and Bitebo will talk. I'll take you out of the studio to allow your tech settle, and I'll bring you back in. Okay, Bitebo, please introduce yourself.
Okay, so my name is Bitebo Gogo, and I am the volunteer executive director of Keeping Israel Foundation, a disability inclusive organization, which started about 11 years ago. And I'm very passionate about young people discovering their purpose in life. I encourage them, to maximize their potentials and to live life to the fullest. And then recently, because of all the challenges that young people are having with, using their African or Nigerian names, because they have a lot of pressure from their parents about, their names. So you find out that a lot of them are very shy about using their Nigerian names. They don't want to associate themselves with their native names. So they tend
Wow.
to either shorten the names or, just adopt English names. So it became a cause for concern for me because it's a path that I have also gone through. It's a journey I went through as a teenager. And I decided to start a name challenge on TikTok. Did your parents name you well? So if your
Mm.
parents named you well, if your name is beautiful, I think that it's very important that you're proud of the name, find out the meaning of the name. Because sometimes some of these children, they don't know the meaning of the name, so they can't even value the names or see the relevance of those names. But by the
Mm.
time they ask those questions, why did you name me this particular name? What's the meaning of the name? Is there any story behind the name? Then you find
Mm.
out that they begin to own the name and they become proud of the name. So yeah, so that's the reason why I started it, because like I said, I'm surrounded by a lot of young people, and you see them that through their teenage years going through, these challenges, struggling with their identity, and part of it is their name.
Wow, I think that is so powerful what you just shared now. Very powerful. One, you're working with youth, and we know that one of the greatest challenges with youth is identity. And the first place to start off with identity is who your name. Who are you? Because your name says a lot about your personality. But we are saying that there seems to
Yes.
be a growing challenge with youth wanting to embrace the name that they have been made, the name, the cultural name. And now that's a problem, and it's a whole story in itself, because when I look at myself, I mean, I'm almost 6 decades. And when I see myself when I was in university, therefore, I'm coming strongly from a, what do you call it now? A colonial, I'll put it that way, colonial perspective. When you think about it, we embraced the English names. Most of us were given English names, your Nigerian name, your Ghanaian name, or your cultural name, and then your last name. So when you go to school, it's your English name that is first. So you're called your English name. And when you're at home, you're called your cultural name. I don't know if you experience that, but that's how it was for me growing up. So the result was you didn't want people to know your cultural name. Good evening, Sister Moji. Good evening, Mama. Mama. You didn't want people to know your cultural name. You were kind of like embarrassed for people to know what your cultural name is. But something happened. There was a kind of rebellion, kind of, because I schooled in the UK, and it was a kind of rebellion where, because when you tell people my name is Juliana, that's my English name. The next question is, what is your real name? So you had this situation whereby people didn't even believe your real name is Juliana or your real name is Ruth, and you're asked for a real name. So there was a season, therefore, where a number of us began to embrace our identity and started telling people, "This is my name is Tolu. My name is Tolu. No, Tolu. Call it right." Now, I can well imagine this is now happening again in the younger generation. So why do you think they are rejecting the names that they have been named? Why are they embracing the English name? What do you think is happening in their mind with this native name? Bitebo?
It's a, okay, yes. Okay, so what has happened is, I mean, I'm talking about the Nigerian perspective because I don't live abroad, you know. So what has happened is that a lot of them don't know how to speak their language, their native language.
Ah,
They don't even know the meaning of the names. They don't know the background behind the names. And then they have friends who have fancy English names that are easier to pronounce. So when they mention their names, a lot of times they face ridicule because sometimes, like the parts of the country where I'm from, I'm Calabari, and our names can be sometimes compound names. So when the name is also very long and then the child doesn't pronounce the name properly, people don't know the relevance of the name, there's a tendency to bully them. Say, look, this
ah,
your name is a tongue twister, it's too long, what does it even mean? And sometimes they just make fun of them. And so as a result of that, they'd rather shorten it, call me IB, call me TY, call me NJ, and then they lose the relevance of
of the
their
name.
names, but
Mm,
they just believe that that's the only way they can fit in
mm,
because the others
mm.
have names like Angela, you know, um,
Two syllable words,
Irene.
two syllable names.
Exactly. Irene. So when you say your name is Tamunon Nengiofori, what?
But your names are long, go.
So,
They are sentences.
so they
Mm.
go like, that's a compound sentence. Could I call you TN? No, my name is not TN. My name is Samnon Nengiofori. What does it mean anyway? I don't know. With their friends. And of
Wow.
course, they're at that
Okay.
age where they want to belong. Yes, they
Mm.
want to belong to a tribe, they want to belong to a group.
Mm.
So to make it easier for them, I went through that process because for a long time, a lot of people didn't know how to pronounce my name properly. And
Mm.
you'll be amazed. Some people called me Ibitakabo. I don't know where that came from. Ibitembo, Bitabo. And I'm wondering, can't they just see that this is the way my name, even it's nowhere near what they're calling me. And so I decided to play safe and I went to put I in front of my name. And I started calling myself Ibitebo so that people could call me IB. But my father kept insisting that there's no I in front of your name. So that
Wow.
acceptance issue too was there for me. But as I got
Mm.
older and I got to appreciate the meaning of the name, you've come with all that is good. That's the literal meaning of my name. But the grammatical meaning
You've
is
come with all that is good. Wow. Did you freeze? Okay. So Hilda, while the network, these are network issues.
In fact,
Are you back? Let's welcome
Good
Hilda. Please let us
fortune.
welcome Hilda. So Hilda, please introduce
So I
yourself.
own the name,
Oh, she's back.
and as a result of that, I stood my ground, and then also calling it
The line is frozen. It's frozen. So I've muted her for now so that Hilda, you can talk. Welcome, Hilda. Welcome.
thank you very much, Pastor T.
Please introduce yourself.
Okay, my name is Hilda Manuel Dixon. I'm a finance professional, and I call myself a mindset and a personal finance strategist, keeping it simple. I believe you can create, you know, your world with your thoughts, keeping them positive, staying tuned to the promises of God, and refusing to be distracted. And when
Mm,
it comes to personal finances, it's something I'm very enthusiastic about because I've seen different parts of life, the lows, the middles, the highs, and I think some of the actions or challenges people face along the way are things that, with the right knowledge and the right attitude, can be avoided. Yes. So
mhm.
I zero into those two topics, mostly mindset and personal finance. So that's
Wow.
it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So what made you have this conversation you had last week? Because you had this conversation about names last week, and
Yeah.
I was like, oh my goodness, that is um so now, like a now topic, a now conversation about names. What made
Yeah.
you hop on that?
In fact, so basically, I wrote a book on CME. And in the book, the epilogue, I
You
actually
have to
have,
say that name very slowly so people will not think that you were just saying a sentence.
there's a sentence, on,
Aha.
yeah, me, yeah. And it basically means nothing is beyond God.
Mm,
Nothing is impossible with God. So it's
right.
actually a sentence. So, yeah, on CMEM.
On
So,
CME.
yeah. So I wrote that book, and the story behind that book really is, or rather I'll say the inspiration I would came from the journey my daughter went through childhood cancer, and after going through that journey and the gap I found while at it, looking for a genuine, authentic story, no filters, and not finding one, made me make a vow then that I would write the book. So
Mm,
that's how I went about writing that book. So as part of that building up the mindset thing, I usually have about a 10 to 15 minutes talk every week, just on Sundays 8 p.m. on my Instagram live. So coincidentally, I happened to be chatting with Bitebo that happened to be doing something on names as well, and I'm like, hey, is this a coincidence or a godspidence or godcidence? I was just wondering what was going on. So we had a small chat, and I said, hey, well, I'm going up at 8, and I'll be talking about names because I believe names are very important and people need to be intentional about it. And I had touched how I came about the name on CME, where I had to use the name on CME. So when we chatted, we connected, we had similar thought processes around names, what they should be, the impression they can create about you, the pronouncements over your life, and
right.
just along those lines. And we said, hey, why not? Let's have something together at 8 p.m. And that was it. So that's how come we came up with the name topic. Just pull people's attention, that aspect.
Right.
Of
That is awesome. That is so awesome. So I want you to just we're going to have a different session one day to talk about your book because your book itself is a whole testimony in itself, right? And just to show people, here is her book on pronounce it again, on
On
See and Me,
yeah,
right? And
on
it's available on Amazon,
yes, it's on Amazon.
right? Okay, that's the book right there. And while we are on books, I want to just remind you that Pastor T's books are available. Okay, let's support Pastor T. Hidden Riches, and it's good for your life, not for your life, it's good for your prayer life. Hidden Riches, you're praying for your son as a man, for a couple currently. This book is being used, we're using it to pray for couples getting married. So there's this, there is Let Us Break Bread Together, and there is Father, I Need Your Help. All books are available on Amazon. So this, how has the name played out?
Okay, so I think it's best I start with the origin of the name.
Right.
So when I got married, it took about 5 years for me to have a baby. But before
Five
I got,
years.
yeah, so before I even took in, I had seen a doctor that told us, that it's impossible for us to have a child naturally.
Mm.
And he actually used the word impossible. And I remember coming down the stairs, because it was some tall building, some renowned doctor out of the country. And I told my husband then that really, I don't really care what the doctor says, that all I know is that the word of God says there shall be none barren in my land, neither male nor female. I don't care how it would happen, but, I didn't want to center on it or just focus on it. And, but well, coincidentally, just telling me this in October, towards the end of October. And by January, I realized I was pregnant. I
Wow.
hadn't taken anything because at that time the doctor says, hey, don't bother trying with the IVF. It's not going to work for you. Don't bother with any other method. In fact, you can't even afford it in the US. He advised us to go to Europe. So you can imagine when a doctor, a professional, well known, has given you all that, and miraculously, I was pregnant. So I couldn't think of a better name
Than that.
than
I
that.
don't want to I don't want to rush over this particular point
Yes.
because we don't know who's going to listen to this in the future. We respect and we honor all our doctors. You do so much. You spend years to study. But one thing is this: our medical doctors only know what they know. Nobody knows or has the knowledge of God. And knowledge of God comes from the Word. The information is from the Word of God, the Bible. And He is the God of the impossibility. So when the knowledge of mankind ends, God is able to override the knowledge of mankind because God is the one who gives children. So the medical doctor had said, it is impossible. Don't even try to do IVF in October. A couple months down the line, you were pregnant.
Yes.
We celebrate our God. Please continue.
So yeah, so that was where Onsiemie came up, and Onsiemie happens to be my sister-in-law's name, and I just love the meaning. It's a Ghanaian name because my husband is partially Ghanaian, partially Nigerian. So I was just so I mean I couldn't think of any other name than Onsiemie. So when my husband gave her the first name and says, okay, you go ahead and give her the middle name. I just went for CME. Okay, so how has the name played out? Down the line, 21 months later, my daughter was diagnosed with cancer, stage 4. And
Wow.
usually in the hospitals, you would always have your name on the door so that they're sure they're coming into the right room to administer drugs and stuff like that. And they put her first name, Mama, which, by the way, isn't a bad name. It means I like justice. It means don't cheat me, you know. That was what they put on the door. But at that time, I needed a miracle, and the only way I could connect with that miracle was using the name that constantly pronounced, you know, over her life, something positive, something that could align. So at that point, I said, you know what? On the door, put her name on CME.
Hmm.
And they were like, hey, we go by first name basis. And I said, yes, but on her passport, I mean, it's not a nickname or something. It's on her passport. She has it in her
Right.
mind on CME Dixon, that the three names are there. Oh, we can't pronounce it. I said, no problem. You can say on Sue, you can put the short form, but that's the name I wanted there. So each time they called Ansu, I completed it with Yamiye.
Whoa.
Because I needed to constantly say, when they've given you the poor prognosis, because neuroblastoma stage 4 is very aggressive. No one can tell you, oh, the rate of relapse is so high. There were so many stories around it because the doctors will tell you everything to expect. And at that point, all we needed was that constant reminder and pronouncement over her as an individual that nothing is impossible with God. So you are going to come out of this, you know, completely healed, perfect, whatever the term, that suits anyone at this point. But I was insistent on that name. And that was how everyone kept on calling her Ansu. And I went Yamiye. I went on CME, on CME, on CME, because each time I was declaring, I was confessing, and I was pronouncing life over her. It was more like speaking life over her. So hearing on CME was like, nothing is impossible with God. Nothing is beyond him, not even cancer. So
This is powerful.
that's yeah. So that's how I just kept on using the name, having everybody call her the same name. And yes, God kept his word. Today she's alive,
Hallelujah.
a teenager, living life, doing life, and I can only owe it to God. Yeah.
This is awesome because what I like about this, what you're saying is this. Somebody else could have had that same name. Her child could have been that same name, but may not have connected it. I feel that you put the power and the consciousness to bear when you called her name. So you were not just calling her name like, oh, her name is Onsuyemi. You were calling her name in a prophetic way with consciousness and making that declaration. Nothing is impossible with God. Nothing is impossible with God. Every time you did that is powerful. That is so powerful. And what I love about this, honestly, is that we often hear more stories about the negative,
Yeah.
which is a child was named this name and you have negative outcomes. But here we're hearing a positive thing. This is the name of this child. I insist on this name. And a child who from very early was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, by the consistency of declaring prophetically who she is and the use of medical field and everything, God has shown himself mighty and strong and will continue to show himself strong in
Amen.
your lives. I want to bring in my sister who joined us last week. Welcome, sis. She joined us last
Thank
week. In fact, she discussed um names with us last week. I don't know if you've been hearing what I'm listening to on Suyemi. We must pronounce names correctly. Now, guess what? I decided to even go and find out my own name because my first name is Juliana and I'm called Juliana. I have never tried to find out what my name means. Can you imagine? It means youthful. Am I not youthful?
you are.
Now we know why.
Yeah, you are.
Absolutely.
Honestly, when I saw that, I was like, okay, this name is me.
Yeah.
This name is me. I am youthful. So my names are Juliana Youthful, Tolulope. That means Toluwalope. The praise is to God. Abi.
Yeah.
And then
Yes. Yeah.
only Amaka, the heart is good. And my heart is good. Hey,
Yes.
right? So it is so important. It's so important. I want to even move to a conversation that Bitebo started. The young
It's okay.
young people not wanting to identify with their, I'll call it native or cultural names. There's something you said that is because they don't know what it means. Then it might sound long, it doesn't sound funky, it doesn't sound like I was listening to your other video where you said you want to be called IB by force, just want to be IB. And I don't know how many of
Yes.
us went through that stage when you were younger, where you just want to have this kind of short name, a sign like, you are the hip person, you're the in person. So that means there's a responsibility on us as parents to very early explain to our children what their names mean. So they don't want to they don't feel like rejecting it. If anybody wants to pronounce your name contrary, you should be able to say, no, that's not my name. My name is this. And I know that Satunu has a lot to say about that. Please hop in on this conversation.
Okay. Good evening, everyone.
Good
Thanks,
evening.
Pastor T. I wasn't planning to join in. I just wanted to, hide, and you found me out. I thank God for your testimony, the sister that spoke just before now, and by the mercies of God, it's permanent in Jesus' name.
Amen.
So, talking about, I think I forgot to mention last week that by the reason of the name we gave my first daughter, who was named then by my pastor then. Now that my daughter is 24, going on 25. Everybody that my pastor has done a naming ceremony since then, he has told the story of my daughter. Her name, yes. Everybody, in fact, people, even for workers training, I think there's a session that he takes. Somehow, every new worker knows my name, knows my daughter's name, and knows the testimonies, that came from just naming, that. And when we sit and look at it, I don't know, I didn't mention last week that I had a stillbirth. And what we did normally as a couple, my husband and I, is to really know what we're going to name our child. We seek, God's face, and then come up with a name that we want to name our child. We were clear on not collecting any name from anybody. If you want to, you can call. You are not giving it to us. We are not interested. The name we wanted. So that baby was Oluwadunsin. And Oluwadunsin actually means it's good, good, profitable to serve God. And with everything that went on, that it ended up in a stillbirth, it was very clear that there was an attack on our faith, on our, everything. But still today, yes, that went. It was after that I had my son, who is Oluwatishe, because God did it. The testimony of this, that yes, I mean, it doesn't mean everything will go, smoothly, but God will be God. And no matter the challenges, no matter what we go through, God is God. So now, by the way, for those who may be wondering what my first daughter's name is, her name is Oluwalanoayo. Now, this name, God in different dimensions, to us, her parents, to her herself, God has always opened. When it looks like there is no way, God always just makes a way of joy. So that Oluwalanayo is a name that is at work. And sometimes when I sit and but then I do remember that perhaps that was what the enemy saw, that there was a great battle to name her something else. And in fact, those days we didn't have money, we didn't have anything. If you had a video, it should have been the comic. In fact, maybe I should get somebody to reenact that day, because she was simultaneously we're having both Christian and Muslim naming
Naming
ceremony.
ceremony.
Yes, yes, you know, but I mean that's just it about me. I've said it last week. I don't want to take the time of those who are here this week so that they can also, air their own views. But names are important. There's nothing like call me. I don't have nicknames. If I had left a WhatsApp group because they wanted to start giving me some nonsense nickname. Pastor T, remember I told you.
Yes.
I left the place. I don't have. I had won them once, won them twice. When I realized that some still felt they could just, throw in some nick, I left the place. Let
Mm,
them do that. I won't
mm.
answer to any nonsense.
Thank you, sis. Which still comes back again to identity. Your
Yeah.
identity, Bitebo, because, hey, no, Bitebo, I must call you right. Bitebo, are you
Yes.
there? Good, yes, you're there. We come back to this thing of identity. So, how do we, what do you think as parents we need to do so that our children embrace this name? And honestly, I don't know. I want to start this conversation today. I want to bring in um, the youth, particularly in the diaspora, to hold a particular conversation again about names, because the name issue, we're fast losing it. We are fast losing it. This cultural name issue where our kids are not bearing the real names, and it would. I think even parents are encouraging it. Particularly in the diaspora. So, Bitebo, what would you say parents need to do to encourage the next generation to maintain their names?
First and foremost, everything starts from the home. And I think that if the parents themselves probably bear their own name, okay, so because you also have some parents who have moved to English names, and some of them have also shortened their names, so their children don't even know the meaning of their parents' names. So if the children know the meaning of their parents' names, the background behind it, it's also very encouraging, because if you look at Hilda and her husband, for example, they bear their full names. So the tendency for their children to think that, my name is not good enough, I need to shorten it, is not there.
Mm,
And then another thing is to tell the children the reason why you name them that particular name.
mm,
In my own case, my dad got into law school the year that I was born. And so he told me that I came with everything that is good in his life. I was his good fortune. So, and that was so many years later. And how did it happen? I was writing a term paper in anthropology, I think either anthropology or history, and we're doing the meaning of cultural names, the literal meaning and classical meaning. And I went to meet him and said, "Excuse me, we've been fighting over this name, but this is the time to tell me, what does this name really mean?" And by the time he told me, I was really, really awed. But
how
unfortunately,
old were
a
you?
lot of I think I was 18. I was
Okay.
18 then. But then most people were already used to calling me, Ivy. So it was difficult to just go to school and announce, "Excuse me, everybody, my name is now Bitebo." So, anyways, so when he told me the meaning, I was really, really fascinated with it,
Mm,
but I couldn't really do anything at that particular time. So I
mm,
had to, wait for some years before I could effect it. So it's very important that they know the meaning of the name, because just knowing that I brought good fortune into my father's life. First,
mm,
he brought us closer together,
mm,
you know, and then also it gave me the motivation I needed to bear my full name.
mm.
So
Without
I think
shame.
that's, yes, that's very important.
Mm,
Then I know this aspect too is something that is, no longer part of our culture. Even like you rightly said, a lot of parents don't even speak the language. So the children don't speak the language. They don't even know the meaning of their names. So if parents could encourage their children, and it doesn't really matter whether it's the husband's language or the wife's language. If there's anyone that they're really interested in and they can easily pick up, I think they should be encouraged. More
Mm.
so when both parents speak the same language. Because
Yeah.
you find some parents would say, I don't want to hear that language in my house. Here we speak English language. So how do they want them to speak the language? But take a typical, because my husband and I lived in a multicultural camp for like 10 years. You find out that the Dutch, the Filipinos, the Indians, you name any of them, Italians, you meet them, their children speak their language, despite the fact that they are not in their native countries. They speak their language. Why is it okay for Nigerians, even right in their own country, to banish their languages from their homes? So it's
Ha.
a multi-hydra-headed problem, because if we're not even proud of where we're from, we're not proud of our language, we're not proud of the good things about our culture, then we don't expect our children to be proud of, the language, the names that we give to them. So, like you rightly mentioned, it starts from the home. You know, once they know the meaning, because like my younger brother's name is Opubo, and that name, I must tell you, has followed this young man everywhere he's gone to. Opubo means a very important personality. He was born the year that my father became a judge, so my father gave him that name. Opubo, very important personality. He will not allow anybody to shorten his name, because he will tell you, it's just 5 letters, for goodness sake. What's so difficult about pronouncing Opubo? I'm a very
Oh,
important
oh.
person, and he's my he's
Okobo.
my youngest brother, you know. And today he's from the very beginning, he said he wanted to become a diplomat. He wants to study international relations and all that. So as small as he was, he understood the meaning of his name. He knew what he wanted to do with his life, and that's the power of a name. So once they understand the meaning of their names, you find out that they will own it. They will speak up for themselves, and they will not allow anybody to intimidate them. But it has to start from the home.
Honestly, that is so well said. Thank you so much. I was highlighting um Pastor Wanu's statement here. She said you can say that again in Nigeria is peculiar to Nigeria. I don't know why. I think still having to maybe our colonial roots. Why we would stop our children from speaking the lingua. A child can speak many languages, but it's like there's this pride growing up that your child cannot speak your own language. So if we do not create a love for the culture, why would the child want to be named with that name? So I'm going to ask before I ask, I'm going to ask you, Sister Tinu, to tell us when should parents start talking to their children about their names? Well, there's something I want to just talk about Pastor Wonu here. So Pastor Wonu actually teaches people Yoruba. Now I remember one day I was writing names and I wrote her name as Wonu. I was going to write her name like Wonu Adekokokoka, and she sent me a message. She said that is not her name. I'm thinking, your name is Wonu now because we all say Pastor Wonu. She said Wonu has no meaning, and she just says Omo Wonu Ola. So if you look at her name, can you see it's not written as Wonu? It's written as Omo Wonu Ola. So that name, is very, very important. And I also want to celebrate you that, you really give it for the culture in that you are teaching people the language, particularly in the diaspora, because the language is about to disappear, right? So, Sister Tinu, I want to invite you in, and then I'll call Sister Hilda, when do you think parents start talking about their children, about their names? What age?
Okay. Well, as early as possible. But then, you see, we're talking about this like every parent understands the importance of names. So it really comes from coming together, the couple understanding, like sister, sorry, I can't say the name, the lady that spoke just before me, said,
Bitebo.
Bitebo, okay. It starts from the family, and it starts from, I tell singles, don't be getting, because when singles are asking you questions, is whether they should have sex or not have sex. Look, if you are busy looking at what you should be looking at before marriage, even to have sex will not, the space will not be there. These are issues that they should talk about. Remember, I told you that while about to date my husband, we spoke about names. If you recall, I said that he changed his name, you know. So I think at that point, he realized how important names were to me. Perhaps before then, it wasn't a big deal, you know, that, okay, yeah, this is the, but it was very important to me. And so with that in mind, it helped when we finally got married and had to name our own children. It's a different case where I've said, oh, be any name, then you come in, and that is where the problem comes in. Because we start with something, then midway, we don't want to do it again. And the other party is like, what are you talking about? What's the big deal? Because, you know, different family, different dynamics. There are homes that the woman has no say in what her child is called. They bring gifts, which, if you recall also last week, was part of what they were trying to do to me. The only difference was, and guess what? Like I told you, number 7. My husband is number 7. So this is something they had done previous, you know, with other grandchildren. But it was like, no, this is a new, it doesn't matter what the precedence is. This is what God has told us this child will be, and this is what this child will be named. I could get away with that because I had the support of my husband. If I didn't have that, it would have been, it was tough, it should have been harder. And I think the minute my mother-in-law saw that my husband was with us, she too sort of joined us. So it was the 3 of us against the extended family, you know, but as we could see, but there's a foundation. You can't just wake up, and then when you now have the children, because both of you have an understanding of the name, then we begin to teach the children that this is what your name means. This is prophetic. This is, you know, and as you go on, like I told you also, I don't care if my child's teacher is from my Igbo, Hausa, or Congo. Know how to, I go there, I make a date with every class my children go to. I make a date with the teacher, and I tell you, this is my child's name. Please, I'm begging you, do not shorten it, do not abbreviate it. Oh yeah, call it, let me hear you. They know me, I'm a militant mother. And once they comply, we are good. Yes,
that's good. Oh my goodness. Honestly, I have to celebrate that because it takes a lot of effort to do so. And what you've said is that parents should first of all even agree that they both have an understanding of the power of the name.
Yes,
when there's an agreement at that level, then they can easily implement it. And then when they are calling the name of the child, they also, like Hilda was doing in her family, understanding that this is a prophetic name. And then they start to see that name play out in their lives in different ways, or in the life of the child. Praise God. Thank you so much. Oh my God, time has really gone very fast. Okay, Hilda, what?
Is it okay to leave now, sis?
Oh yes, yes, yes. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Are you going to log me out? I don't know how to do it. Am I
Oh
supposed
yes,
to do it here?
I'll just
Okay,
take you
okay,
off.
I can.
All right. She's seen it. Yes. Thank you. I pulled her in when I saw that she was online. Yes. So Hilda, what are your? I'm gonna invite you separately to talk about that's your awesome book. But what are your what would you give as your take home to listeners now and listeners later in terms of names, identity? Yes.
Okay, I'll try and keep it as short as I can. But basically, I would like to just, what I would like to throw out there is for everyone to be intentional about names, knowing that your name carries power and your name is more like a pronouncement over your being. It gives your life that direction, I would say. Then we all need to be intentional about it.
Right.
Even the parents, as soon as a child is able to understand that water is used to quench their thirst, they should start discussing names with the children. I didn't know the meaning of my name till my late 20s. So, but when it came to having my child or my own children, I was very intentional. Maybe the circumstances around it all made me intentional. But what I see with names is, and on this, we talk about communication a lot in marriage, but communication is for the whole family. Because, like Bitebo said, once that child is able to understand the meaning of their name, it's easier for them to own the name. And
Yeah.
once you're able to own your name, it's easier for you to be comfortable in your own skin. Because the thing here is, a lot of all this name change, whether we like it or not, has to do with self esteem. So I'll say to everyone out there, be intentional, love yourself, and like I said, even in my own the discussion we had with Bitebo, if you don't like your name or your name is not reflective or representative of who you want to be, please feel free, change the name, but own your name, be proud of your name, be confident, and that way you're able to ward off even all the distractions that come with people trying to twist your name in different directions. So that's it for me in a nutshell.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That was awesome. There's one thing I'm going to talk about. I hope I'm able to get people on board, which I began to say in the diaspora. I noticed, for example, among the, I would say, Chinese community more, um, on the registration, they will have their name, their Chinese name, first and last name. But in school, we call the children something else. So you can have a child's name called Zunwan. Child's name is Zunwan. I'm sorry if that's not a real Chinese name. I'm just giving a name. But the child is being called Julia at school. And now I am beginning to see that also among Africans, where there's one name, there being one name in a passport, and a totally different name. So like they can say, oh, what when you fill your name, you put your full name, then there's a section that says, what would you like to be called? So if my full name doesn't have, Bitebo, if my full name is Bitebo Gogo, I can decide I want to be called Julia. Okay. So when I've asked questions as to why that seems to be playing um, a totally different thing in the space of school, because now they are in an environment where there might be some level of pressure, some level of bullying, some level of whatever we want to call it, that now makes so the parents have a need to give their children these names so as to minimize the many battles they need to fight. Then in the workspace, some people will argue and say, look, it is more work when they just see that your name is foreign and then you now have to battle that, minimize your battle so you can get to the front door. So that is a different conversation I'm going to have to ask, how that is playing out in the diaspora. But otherwise, Bitebo, what is the so your brother's name? I have always pronounced, not your brother in particular, but that spelling I've always pronounced it wrongly. So tell us the spelling. Say it again. How do you pronounce it?
Opubo.
So it's
Opubo. Opubo. Opubo.
OPU. Oh, not OK. Oh, not OK. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So thank you so much. So as we round up, what are your final thoughts on this conversation?
Okay, I believe that a name is the first gift that the parents can give to the child.
Hmm.
And you want to give a good gift to that child, because the name will last with the child forever, except the child has reason to change it. So it's a legacy that you're passing on to that
Wow.
child.
Wow.
And of course, that child will also pass it on to their grandchildren. So, like Hilda said, it's very important to be intentional about it. And like we have also seen in my own case, I don't know about Hilda's case, it also contributes to the esteem of the child. It could lead to low self-esteem. It could boost, like my brother owned his name right from childhood. It could help the child to be very, very confident as well. So parents should be very intentional, because it's a gift that you give to the child. You don't spend money. All you need to do is put a lot of thoughts, a lot of love and care into it. And then that child will be grateful for it. Each time I remember the fact that my father gave me the name Bitebo because of the fact that he got into law school and he believes that
Wow.
I was the one that gave him that good fortune. It emboldens me to want to keep the name going in his memory, because right now he's late. I want to keep the name going in his memory. And then the final thing I have to say is that it's a pronouncement. Anytime somebody calls you by your name, the person is pronouncing effortlessly. Somebody doesn't have to start praying any other prayers. Just by calling your name, the person is saying a prayer over your life. And, people cannot pray for you too much.
Wow, thank you. That was so well said. The name is a gift. I love that. The name you give your child is a gift. It is a legacy. We'll have to have time to talk about people who have changed things like their last names to names I think have no meaning. But anyways, that's a different conversation. So we'll keep the conversation going. Hilda and Bitabo, thank you so much. Guys, I told them to do this like 2 days ago. So thank you so much for making time. And I want to give a shout out to all those who have joined on Facebook and on YouTube. I can see Moji. I can see my sister-in-law, Eunice. I can see Pastor Wanu. I can see Glow Chukuka. I can see, who else can I see? Rhoda. Um, Sister Tunu just came in now. Who else am I seeing here? Funke, everyone who has joined on Facebook, on YouTube. Thank you very much. If this is your first time, remember to subscribe to the channel and like the video so that other people will think is worthy of watching. Thank you so much. It's good to see you again, and I'll see you next week.